Today I'm making Sokka's space sword from Avatar. This was a patron request from Ethan M. Okay, this is made from meteoric iron, so first, go to space. Then, harvest a meteoroid. Normally with meteorites, all the minerals would be burned away on re-entry, leaving behind only the raw ore. Since we harvested this meteor by unnaturally slipping the surly bonds of gravity to punch the face of God, we'll have to use a much less sophisticated method. Collect the ingots into a crucible and melt them down. Pour the molten foam into a mold.
I know now why you try, but it's something I can never do. Who is that, Christopher Walken?
Schwarzenegger. This guy. When it cools, cut it into strips. Once you have two identical strips, carve a groove down the center. That right there, that's why you wear a respirator. Attach them together with contact cement. Then weight them down with heavy clamps. Only heavy clamps, nothing else heavy will do. Next, cut one end into a stabby shape. Then, shave off the edges diagonally. This only works if your knife is really sharp, hence the sharpener I got there. Next, I slid a wooden dowel into the groove that I previously cut with my rotary tool. This prevents it from being bendy, which makes it much easier to sand, so I smoothed out all the rough edges on my belt sander. I just want to stop and say really quick that this half-sanded look right here, I actually think it looks pretty cool. This is sort of what I would come to expect from a space sword, because my personal interpretation of what space metal is full of impurities. I have no way to back that up, and this wouldn't really be a very useful sword. It'd be more of a bludgeoning device. Maybe like an obsidian sword? Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. So there was about a year between the previous shot and this one, mostly because my patrons were requesting other builds, but in part because I saw sanding as this insurmountable and boring task. But when I finally got around to it, it was like 15 minutes. So I guess the moral here is, if you think something's gonna be arduous, just do it. Sponsored by Nike. And peer pressure. Alright, so this whole thing is warped just a little bit, and it's because the Dremel sort of moved around a bit on the inside. Can't do anything about that now, so I'm gonna have to put a little dab of hot glue right in there, let it set like that, and then I can continue on with the rest of it. Next, I cut the Suba. I only know that word from the Invisible Sword episode of Warehouse 13. I took Kendo, and I wasn't even able to pick up that word. I hollowed out the insides of these two pieces to match the shape of the blade, and then super glued them on. These are my 1, 2, 3 tapes. Only prop makers get that. Relics of a bygone era, excavated from a dig site in Schenectady. Wait a minute, this is pre-remastered cut.
Yes, I bet you have.
Ah, hot shot first. No rubbernecking. I love it. So the only way I can watch this movie is on VHS. That's hilarious. Oh, and kind of sad. Next, I cut up some craft foam to form a bunch of 3s or E's, depending. I glued those on with more super glue. Next, I made a handle out of a foam dowel. More on that later. For the pommel, I cut a little section of slightly wider foam dowel, then embedded this part from a broken pocket watch. Then I rounded the edge with quick seal. I also used it to fill in some of the seams in the Suba, as well as the damaged areas of the blade. When the quick seal dried, I painted the sword with gloss latex. This is a house paint. You can find it in the paint section of your hardware store. EVA foam acts as a sponge, absorbing the first few layers of paint, so I did the first few layers in gloss brown just to get rid of it. I got a whole can of brown paint that I never use, and I'm almost out of black. 1 coat, 2 coats. So with each coat, it's gonna get shinier. Now right now, these patches that the quick fill went over are a little bit more shiny than the rest of it. When they even out, then they're good. Should take 3 or 4. When those first few coats dried, I did a top layer in black, including the Suba. I also did multiple layers on the pommel, which had the effect of slowly disappearing the seams, which makes the detail look more like it's pressed into metal than 2 separate pieces glued together. So I just watched that sanding footage and I was like, God, that door's disgusting. I could clean it, or I could cover it up with Uma Thurman. Of course, the drawback is now I can't use autofocus when I'm getting this angle anymore, because facial recognition software. But at least I don't have to clean. When that dried, I painted the Suba and pommel gold. The black base coat makes the gold more vibrant for some science reason. Then I finished the handle by cutting a foam dowel in half, cutting a trench in each half, gluing it over the dowel with contact cement, and wrapping it in scrap foam and shoelaces. And that's how you make a space sword. Why would you need a space sword anyway? Ah, Space Dragon. It's Space Dragon, everyone. Don't worry, I got this. Hey, thanks for watching, everybody. I really have to thank my patrons, Ethan in particular, for requesting this build, because otherwise this sword would have remained unfinished on a shelf gathering dust for years to come. Like so many other builds, Commander Droid. In all seriousness, I wouldn't be able to make these videos at all without my patrons, so thank you from the bottom of the infinite void where my heart should be. Hey, what's your favorite sword prop? Let me know in comments below. See you later. It's this sword in the foam. Get it? Yeah, that's so corny. Alright, that's it. Ugh. It's like 1,000 degrees.